Dad was 6 years old, and I could always remember my grandmother talking about it and said they first moved here, and my dad had already started school in a little small one-room schoolhouse, and when they got to Dacula had a two-story school building. And she said, "Lord Gordon," said, "you're just going to have to start over." So my dad started over in the first grade, had to start over in first grade here in Dacula.
Do you have one teacher that you might remember better than any of the others as you were growing up?
Yeah, Miss Ruth Hood. I remember her better than any of the other teachers. Of course, I knew all of them. She had 2 or 3 sisters that was teachers that taught here too.
Your father had sisters that were school teachers, Miss Maddie, Miss Grace, and Miss Ruth Hood, who were well known in the Dacula area. Tell us about each one of them.
All right. I'm going to start with Ruth because Ruth was the oldest. She was older than my daddy. She was the oldest of all. It was 9 children. And I think she always taught down at Dacula. And English in the high school, probably the 11th grade that she taught. She was and she was a pianist at the church. I don't know, she probably did some at schools also. Mm-hmm. And she was very soft-spoken and kind. And from what everyone said, she was very, very loved by everybody. And Grace was the next. And Grace went to Bessie Tiff, and she taught at Bethesda most of her teaching career. And Maddie was the youngest one, and I think she went to the University of Georgia, and then she was a teacher at Grayson most of her years. Mm-hmm. They were very different. Of course, I loved them all, but Ruth, I think I was very, very small when I would remember we'd go down on Sunday afternoon, and I can remember her, this was a long time ago because I'm old, because she would take me by the hand, and she would tell me about the flowers and told me about God's love. And I still remember that. I can just remember she just held, and I must have been so young, she held my hand, and it was just one-on-one that she did that for me, and I always remember that.
As you grew up and you taught school, you taught for how many years?
Oh, gee, Jim, I forgot.
40 and a half.
100, I think.
No, 40 and a half years is what you taught. And you primarily taught 6th grade, mostly. 6th grade, okay.
That's a tough grade to teach because the kids are changing. They don't know what's happening to them, but they're changing about that age. But they get by.
There was 11 grades, but you had 12 years going to school. You had primer. See, instead of the first grade, you started with primer, which was first grade, and then you went 11 year and finished 11th grade, but it was actually 12 grades.
12 grades. And you graduated in
38.
19?
I was the only one that I could live in, so I had to do the farm work and try to go to school. So go to school about 2 days a week. We had to go 10 days a month to pass, so I'd go to school 2 days a week, and they'd throw a lesson assignment out the bus, and I'd pick it up and study that night. But it was a very good life, and we enjoyed it. Everybody was poor back then, and nobody didn't realize how poor we were because everybody was poor.
Where'd you go to school?
I went down here, down here was a little 2-room schoolhouse.
Little 2-room schoolhouse located on the Dacula Road where Mount Zion United Methodist Church is.
And it didn't have no windows now, it just had these shelters. You know, like these wood shelters? Mm-hmm. And where we heated at, it was a low heater you called a pig. Kind of like Joe Ford's.
Sort of like a small pot-belly stove?
Yeah, it was a big one.
A big one. Oh, a big one. A little big. All right.
Okay. It was big.
All right.
And we always went out, and when it's long been, sometimes people would, in the wintertime when it's cold, they had to bring loads of wood in the wagon. Every other week, different one. And sometimes we had to get out and go out in the wood and pick limbs up and break them up and make fire to keep warm.
To make the fire for the schoolhouse.
Uh-huh.
Well, when you were growing up, and even up in when I was growing up, the schools were separate
Yeah,
for
that's right,
black
that's right, yeah.
people and
Oh,
for
yeah, that's
white
right, that's
people,
right, that's right.
and so your school at Mount Zion
Yeah.
was a black school at
That's
that
right.
time.
And we walked to school all the time.
And you
Walked
walked
4 miles.
4 miles to
Walk
school.
there and back every day.
All right, 4
and
miles.
Then come back and go to the field and work.
Go to the fields and work.
Well, I believe it's in 1932 they built what we always called as a new building. It was a 1-story extension out from the 2-story building, and that in those days there was 4 rooms in the high school building and an auditorium upstairs in the 2-story building. And in the other building, there was 6 classrooms as well as I remember, and an office and library. My daddy and uncle and some more people, more boys here in Dacula, decided to have some fun on New Year's Eve. And my grandpa had some dynamite, and they got some dynamite and put it in a half-gallon lard bucket and put a long fuse in it and hung it in a tree up at the corner of the school building. And they lit it, and he got in their buggy and was halfway to Lawrenceville when it went off. Well, it blowed all the windows out of the school building, the Methodist church, and the Methodist parsonage, knocked the Methodist preacher's wife out of bed, and it broke windows everywhere. And so they found out who it was, and it cost my grandpa and some of the more other men cost about $1,500 a piece to get all the damage repaired. That was a lot of money in those days, and it cracked a 2-story building from the top to the bottom on one corner.
Georgia has changed over the years that I was in that business, starting in 67 or so. In 1967, I was always very careful in parts of Georgia when we were going to do self-help classes and classes that dealt with some technical things for county and city government, to ask the supervisor, the mayor, or the county commissioner if some of the people that I was going to be talking with, who were products of the things that had gone on before, the Great Depression, World War II, and those kind of things. And some of those folks who were very nice people and very capable in the jobs that they were doing, where the cities and counties were not able to read and write. And I was always very careful to try to check with those folks so that we didn't in any way cause any embarrassment to those folks. And you don't find that anymore.